Envy was not one of our crosswords, but I had it this morning. And yesterday, Grace, who's a friend of many of ours, who helped us with our resurrection cross, she says, now, Shanna, none of this. She said, that's fine, but it's Easter. You have to have big arm motions. So do not be afraid. Be bold with your Easter ribbon. Right? I mean, how do you not smile and think that's fun? Right? Thank you, Gail. Thank you over there. Good job. Excellent job. See, look, now we've got it. Now we've got it. See, now some of you laughed earlier, but now you're jealous. I know. Well, it is good to be with you on this Easter morning. And I have to say that I'm kind of glad that the canopy of prayers is no more. I'm glad for a lighter feeling this morning. I'm glad for some silliness and some fun. I said that at 8:30 as well, and it's just kind of carried with me all morning. You're going to wish you had one. I'm not telling you. There's going to be a run on them after church. What, more next year? Okay, Justice and Mercy will buy them. Yeah, right, yeah. It got real heavy, so I'm glad for a bit of lightness this morning. That's what Lent is supposed to do in the weeks leading up to Easter, is to be a little heavy so that we feel the lightness and joy of Easter. And my promise to you is that I always will be as honest as I possibly can be. And so I have to tell you this morning that Easter came earlier in the week for me. It's kind of been coming for about 10 days. And it really struck me on Thursday when I got an email from one of our church members. She had an Easter moment on the streetcar. Who's ridden the streetcar? Oh, this is excellent. Oh, that makes me very happy. She had an Easter moment riding the streetcar with some friends. She was sitting there when one of our neighborhood friends who sleeps in the park got on. And he was carrying this big plastic mat. And she looked at that and she recognized it. Yeah, she recognized it. And she leaned over to her friend and she said, our church has been making those mats. And he goes, what? And she goes, I'll explain to you later. You see, our kids and our youth and some of our church ladies have taken what I consider to be one of the great scourges of our planet, and that is plastic grocery bags. They're good for very little except getting caught in the trees in my neighborhood. And so we collected them as a congregation. Everybody dug them out from underneath their kitchen sink. And our kids took them with Reverend Suze and flattened them all out because, Bill Langley just takes them and shoves them under his kitchen sink, and so they're all wadded up. So you have to flatten them out. And then the youth kids, they cut them into strips, and some of our ladies cut them into strips. And then I don't have a crafty bone in my body, but they knit or crochet, Luann. They crocheted these 6-foot plastic mats made out of the scourge of the earth. And so Jan says to this gentleman with his mat, she says, oh, I see you have a sleeping mat there. And her word was, he became effusive to tell her about his mat. He said, this is one of my most treasured possessions. You see, it's soft, right? You're about to tear up because you made one of those. It's soft. And you know what? When it gets a little dirty, you just hose it off in the sink and you wash it off and it cleans right up and keeps me dry. Like when it's going to snow here by the time we get out of church. It's one of my favorite things, and I've been showing it to all my friends. And then he looked at her and he said, and I'm so grateful for whoever was so thoughtful and caring and generous to make these mats for my friends and me to sleep on. And our church member, her friend who was with her, leaned over and he goes, "Your church did that?" And she goes, "Yeah." She said, "Everybody from our littles to some of the oldest ones among us." That is an Easter moment on the subway. Taking this stuff that really isn't good for much of anything, taking these plastic grocery bags that really, they cause a lot of pain and suffering to Mother Earth, and we transformed them into something that gave this man a little bit of life and a whole lot of dignity. And he was so grateful. And it really hit me hard on Thursday when I got that email because, all those plastic mats get crocheted together. And it reminded me of the ties. We had tied all of our prayers together, and they covered us, as Ryan and Sue both said. We took the pain and the hurts and the suffering, and we offered them and we shared them with one another. We hung them up on the cross with the hope that they might be transformed. We asked God to take them, and we challenged ourselves and we challenged one another that we might not cling so tightly to our woundedness, so that we could live a better future than our past, that our tomorrows might be better than our yesterdays in real and tangible ways. My biggest struggle with the prayer canopies was that there was not a doggone thing I could do about any of it. You all wrote such powerful messages on there. And, Ryan and I kind of are mildly arrogant enough to think that we can fix about anything. And there wasn't nothing we could do for any of you because we didn't know who had written them. And we prayed for the broken relationships that you wrote on those strips and the fear and frustration of aging. Aging was on nearly one every week. We prayed over your anger of death and of being left behind, the disappointments and regrets of your past. And we tried to hold those stories tenderly as you left them on the cross week after week, holding those stories of how you were telling us, these are changing relationships in my life. And so as we heard those, I began to realize the power of what it meant to put those on the cross. And I thought, how are we going to tie all these up into what's next? And then that email was just the second part because it had started to click for me earlier last week when all the pieces of what it might mean in a real and tangible way for us to be transformed as a community and as individuals by the love of God, and that we might actually believe that if we could be transformed here, we might offer transformation to the rest of the world who is very, very broken. And last Saturday, I have to be honest, was a game changer for me. We were just up the street, many of you were there, at the March for Our Lives. And it was absolutely overwhelming, especially since it was the day before Palm Sunday, a day when 21st century Christians remember first century followers of Jesus who had a different kind of march. They were shouting, "Save us, save us." And I heard 21st century children, youth, and adults alike shouting many of the same things in the park last Saturday morning. And as I was walking back over here afterwards, I thought back to the very start of this Lenten journey, which was Ash Wednesday, Valentine's Day, the day of the Parkland shooting. How could we have known how the circle would come all the way around? I thought, as I sat in this space later that day with the prayers over us, I thought, these kids from Parkland have taken their suffering and their pain and their disappointments, and they've offered them up to the human family with the hope that we would help them dream for a better future. And as I sat on the step, I thought, we've been doing the same dang thing. We have been taking all of our pain and all of our suffering and all of our brokenness and our anger and all of our stuff that we carry around, and we have offered it up to God and to our community with the hope for a better future. And so now we have this resurrection cross, and so I say to you, so what? What difference is it going to make? Unless we do something with that, we have to take that transformation and the hope for the better future and do something with it. Because I was reminded in a really tangible way in reading all of your prayers that the world is hard, and raising kids is hard, and getting old is really hard. And watching our friends die too young is hard. And some days, I'm not sure which is worse, the commercials or the news, because it's hard. And so we show up this morning on Easter hoping for a little bit of hope, to hear a word that the future might be better than the past. We show up to hear that it might be possible, that there could be something more beautiful than all the hatefulness and ugliness that we see all around us. And I think we show up to remember that once upon a time, when life was hard and the culture was crazy and the world seemed to be spinning out of control, there was this Jesus guy. And this Jesus guy said, things can be different. Love can conquer hate. Hope can conquer fear. And each and every one of us can make a difference. And those first century folks kind of looked at that Jesus guy and went, well, maybe. But, I'm just one little guy. I can't really do very much, Jesus. Until after the culture killed him. And only then did most of the people begin to think, wait a minute. If that Jesus guy got killed for his message of love and hope and grace and goodness and equality for all the human family, if that message of servanthood and vulnerability and walking in ways of humility, we should kind of do something about that, because that's a pretty good message. And they picked up that message, and they created a movement. And we celebrate the ongoing work of that movement on Easter every single year. We show up to this place believing, or at least really wanting to believe, that the Spirit of God is still alive and moving in the world. And we show up on Easter, or I think I show up on Easter, because I want desperately to believe that there still might be a chance that ordinary folks like you and me can still be working on making this message of Jesus a movement that can become reality. One person at a time. That's Easter for me this year. And I know that sometimes we think, well, that's a Jesus story, and Jesus was Jesus, and I'm just me, right? But if we really believe in Easter, and we really believe that that spirit of the risen Jesus lives on and is still moving in the world, trying to make that revolutionary message real, and that the Spirit still inspires ordinary people to try to work for a better way. You know what all good movements need is a good protest sign. Do we have the Jesus one? Do I have a Jesus protest sign? I think I have one. Ah, there it is. Everything you're going to see on those slides through our Easter season is going to be through. You have to look through the ribbons of life. You have to be reminded that it's real. It's going to be right in front of you all this season long. That spirit still inspires ordinary people, even in our time, to say, I am one person, but I can make a difference. And we're going to look at some of those people in the coming weeks. People like Dr. Martin Luther King, who this coming week, it will be the 50th anniversary of Dr. King's assassination. And Lord of mercy, could he have believed that 50 years later? The next week, we'll be looking at Malala Yousafzai, seeking inspiration from this young woman. Our fourth revolutionary, Jesus being the first. The fourth will be Harvey Milk. This fall will be the 40th anniversary of Harvey Milk's assassination in San Francisco. And then we'll come full circle through the Easter season in the last Sunday of the month with the Parkland kids. These kids who have inspired people all over the country to rise up, as Ryan said in his prayer. You know, Easter for me this year is about showing up. Showing up to be inspired by a story once again that one person can make a difference. That's Easter work, the work of the risen Spirit. One mat at a time, one scourge of the earth plastic bag at a time, one protest sign at a time, one person being transformed and connecting to pass that on to another and another and another, making the transformational love of God real. A small group of people willing to be resurrection revolutionaries, believing that love lives and that it can and will change us. And if we let it, we might just be so bold as to change the world. May it be so for us this Easter. Amen.